Hi guys, welcome to another ProFS video. Today we'll be looking at flying the PMDG 737-800 aircraft into London Stansted. We'll be looking at doing a Category 1 approach onto runway 22. The weather conditions in London this week have been pretty poor. We've had lots of low-lying fog and low-level cloud. So the weather is being reported as getting worse. At the moment it's Cat 1 conditions, but it is decreasing quite rapidly. So we're going to do a Category 1 ILS approach, then we will probably have to go around from that because you won't have the visual cues to land. We'll show you how to do a standard go around, the missed approach from the runway 22 at Stansted. Then we'll come back and configure for an auto land Category 3 approach. I know a couple of you guys have been requesting this, so hopefully it's a video that you guys enjoy. I'll start by talking about where we are at the moment and how the aircraft's configured, and then we'll talk about the arrival, the ILS, and the go-around. So at the moment, we passed air to sea at flight level 180. We're going outbound on tracking 299 degrees to Lapra. Lapra is the speed limit point. You know the speed limit points because they have this sort of six-pronged star line. It's the SLP speed limit point. So we need to cross Lapra, maximum 250 knots at flight level 120. After Lapra, we'll go outbound on the 255 degree track to Abbott. Abbott is maximum 220 knots and between flight level 80 and 140. What tends to happen, we'll either get radar vectors just before Abbott or we'll go to Abbott and get vectors, but normally around sort of 5 miles for Abbott, we'll get a vector pretty much to the left to come down this way, and then in for a base, and then a left turn to pick up finals for 22. This is Stansted down here. After that, we'll pick up the ILS, and that's the ILS runway 22. That's on plate 50-2, 17th of August, 2016, London Stansted. I'll make all these plates available to you guys. I'll post them with the video link once it's uploaded. So we're looking for a frequency 110.5, the ident India Sierra X-ray, which you can see on top of the PFD. Final approach track will be 223 degrees, aerodrome elevation 348 feet. DME is required, we have that. There's no other notes, there won't be any intense glider activity at Wethersfield today in these conditions, so no need to worry about that. MSAs, 3,000 feet all around, will keep us safe. Coming in, looking at 2,500 degree shelf altitude, down a 3 degree glide slope, so check height at 4 miles on the ILS, and that's 1670. Down to minimums, so aircraft categories, so for all the aircraft categories A, B, C, and D, Cat 1 at ILS, 548 feet, with a RVR of 550 meters. RVR is just runway visual range, it's how far you can see down the runway. So we need 550 meters. They're reporting 600 meters at the moment, and a cloud base of 250 feet. So it would be normally a monitored approach. There's not two of us today, so we'll just be doing it as a normal Cat 1. So Cat 1 is 200 foot above the ground, so we have about 50 feet to make a decision, hopefully see some lights or enough visual cues to land. If not, we're going to go around. To go around, we're going to climb on the runway track 223 degrees at 3.1 India Sierra X-ray, which is the DME from the ILS, or the 158 radial from Barkway. We're going to turn right to track 354 into Barkway. Must be established on the 354 by 8 miles from Barkway, climbing to 3,000 feet. Maximum 185 knots until established on the 174 radial from Barkway. Now that's important for us because the 737 won't be able to retract the flaps to up or clean up on the go around because it would be above 185 knots. So for us that means we're probably going to have to keep flaps 5 or flaps 2, but for simplicity we tend to just keep flaps 5, nice and slow. We'll get to 3.1 miles incredibly quickly, make a right turn to 354, then clean the aircraft up. Talk about the go-around now. So the biggest mistake people make with go-arounds is rushing them. There is typically no rush in almost any circumstance flying the 737. So for go-arounds especially, you have 200 feet to start the process. As long as you started it by minimums, that's okay. The worst that's going to happen, you might do a touch and go, but from 200 feet above the runway, that's very unlikely. From a Cat 3, decision height of 50 feet, more than likely your wheel's going to touch the runway you decide to go around. But we'll talk about that later. So the first actions we're looking for is just someone to call go around. So call go around. Next action, we want to retract the flaps to reduce the drag. So go around, flap 15, and then we want some power. So set go around thrust. Actions to the pilot flying, you're going to call go around, or the pilot monitoring will call go around. You'll say go around or going around, flap 15, set go around thrust. You'll push the throttles up to roughly between 80, 90, whatever %. And the pilot monitoring will then set a reasonable figure based on the N1 bug, which is typically about 90% for a reduced thrust go around. When you do that, make sure you press toga. So you'll go around flap 15, set go around thrust. As you call go around, press toga on the throttles. The toga button on the throttles, it's hard to see and I don't have easy dot working, but it's underneath the 2 and the 1. Between this lever handle here, in between here, there's a flat panel, and there are 2 black buttons, one on each side, just like the disconnect switch. Those are the toga buttons. I would suggest for flying in the sim, just map it to the T key on your keyboard. It's much easier. For those who don't know, there's also a toga click spot next to the captain's flight director here. That's also toga. So yeah, press toga, go around, flap 15, set go around thrust. After that, pitch up to between about 15 degrees, and you're looking for a positive rate to call for gear up. Once you have gear up, check positive rate on the vertical speed and the altimeter. We'll raise the gear, retract to flaps 5 once the speed allows. At 400 feet, we'll verify we have a roll mode selected. In this case, it'll be LNAV because we've got some turns. If the go around was just runway heading, then heading select is probably more appropriate because you're going to get vectors. So at 400 feet, verify LNAV or heading select. We'll clean up to flaps 5, keep flaps 5, make the right turn. Then we'll retract to flaps 1, flaps up, and then after to climb to 3000, engage the autopilot, and then after takeoff checklist. One thing to note, if you're doing a category 1 approach, you've only got 1 autopilot engaged. When you press toga, the autopilot will disconnect and you'll be manually flying the go around. So let's set the aircraft up now. We can use tracks 223, 223, minimums 548, that's set. 110.5, 110.5, Barkway on standby. It's good to have the VOR on standby because if you're doing the approach and you lose an FMS or you lose the magenta or something weird happens, you can always go back to traditional navigation. It's much easier just to continue on traditional than to panic that you've lost everything. Just noticed this has popped out. I must have pressed the wrong key. I'll put it away when we unpause the sim. So we've got that set. Performance, I have to unpause now. Performance, so put that away. Performance then. We've got 3.5 tons on board. We're getting to standstill with 3.4 tons. So we've got 100 kilos to come off. On the approach page, 58.6. We'll plan for a flaps 40, because that just means if we have to go around and do a Cat3, which is a flaps 40 landing, then we've already planned for it. And we're only going to get lighter, so the speed is safe. So flaps 40, VREF 133, 5 knots to fly, because the wind speed is only 3 knots. That means we're going to be flying 138 on the approach. Just passing Lapra, we'll be told to descend to flight level 80, so we can do that now. We'll just do it in level change. So it'll protect the speed, it'll keep the speed at 250 knots and give us the best rate of descent for that speed. So we got on the approach page 110.5, 110.5, 223 knot, 223 track, 223, 223, landing altitude 348, got 350 in the window, and that's all set. So yeah, like I said, before we get to Abbott, we'll most likely get some vectors, so I'll play the role of air traffic control as well. Landing, we're going to be landing with auto brake 3, sorry I forgot to mention that. I've done the performance calculations, and auto brake 3 flat 40, that's perfectly fine for Stansted. It'll get us off at the first high speed rapid exit taxiway. Not descending as fast as I would normally like. With idle thrust, I typically get quite a bit more than 1,000 feet per minute. So I'm probably going to have to help it along, so let's get the speed brake out as well. Otherwise we're going to end up high and fast. Talk about a few other things for the descent. We would have done this way back in the cruise, but I'm trying to keep this video nice and short for you guys. So on the descent page we put in a forecast. Normally the wind's at 300, 200 and 100. We're already at 100, so there's not much point. The local QNH 1037, this is just for a VNAV descent. Keep the profile nice and accurate. Fixed page, we'll put in runway 22. You can put in any active runway on your route. This time we're landing on 22. Put in 10-mile ring. Should be, that's like sort of for a stabilized ring. So at 10 miles we should be about 3,000 feet above the ground, about 200 knots, and with some flap out, at least flap one. 5-mile ring. We have a choice at our airline between 4 and 5 miles. It's the point at which we put the gear down if no other safety reasons prevail. So 4 miles for good VMC conditions, nice cavalcade days. But today, because it's foggy, it's going to be IMC, so 5 miles for the configuration. Anti-ice on above 10 degrees. And we seem to be pretty much out of any cloud, so I'm going to turn it off for now. Anti-ice off. Passing through 10,000, we'll do something called 10 checks. So we're going to check the fuel. It's balancing the wings, we've got the pumps on. Got a low pressure light actually, but I think that's just because it's been switched off, that's why. Put that back on. Don't know why that's happened. 1 to go. So normally get a vector now. So fly heading 2, 3, 5. Go heading select and fly that for a bit. Get 10 checks for fuel, it's balancing the wings, got the 4 pumps on. Lights, put the lights on. And the taxi light is our landing clearance light now. Local light's not required. APU's off. Angle of bank is now 25 degrees. Pressurization 3.8 psi descending. Bleeds are all set. Seatbelt sign is on. And recall checked. So that's the 10 checks complete. We'll descend to normally about 6,000 feet now on the QNH 1037. Go back to level change. So just to get down. So we set QNH 1037, passing altitude 8,620, cleared altitude 6,000 feet, no flags on the PFD, no flags on the ND, standby instrument set. We do an altimeter cross check just to make sure all our altimeters are accurate and we've both set the correct QNH. When we pass through at 6,000 feet, we'll start slowing the aircraft down. We can update some points. Now we're not flying on our VNAV path. This is not very accurate. I'll bring this up bigger. This is your VNAV descent path. It's saying we're at 500 feet high, but we're on vectors, so it's not as accurate now. It's on the legs page. I'm just going to go this direct to the center fix. And this is a more accurate indication. So we're at 3,000 feet high. So we need to keep coming down. But we're going to get more track miles than this. That's going straight there. We typically go here and back out to about here and then in again, which is what I'll show you today. So passing into 6,000 now, we'll start slowing down 220 knots. We can also use some flap to help us with that. Probably get another turn now. So turn back to the right. Just all for sequencing. 340. You can see there's some quite low lying cloud. And a lot of countryside around Stansted in the UK. As we're slowing down, we can start selecting flap 1. That's just going to help us with the descent. Especially if we expect that we're going to get a turn onto finals at some point quite soon. We're looking quite high again now, so probably wouldn't get a turn onto finals just yet. We'll probably fly through the localizer and come back and capture from the left. One thing I've noticed in this sim, it doesn't tend to descend anywhere near as fast as we can the real aircraft. So I tend to be high a lot of the time when I fly in the sim. So now we can descend to 4,000. Level change again. And just for ease, I'll say we've been cleared down to 2,500 for the ILS. Stop us messing around with this. So talk about actions for the ground again. So the actions are going to be Press toggle, go around flap 15, set go on thrust with a positive rate, gear up, 400 feet, verify heading select or LNAV. Then retract to flaps 5, keep flaps 5 to the turn, then flaps 1, flaps up, add to takeoff checks. Yeah, I mean, level change at 220 knots with the speed brake out. I go flaps 5 now. We should be doing at least 2,500 feet per minute. That's okay. We have some time and some miles. Just give ourselves some more vectors here. And update the point again, and that will just show how we're doing. If we go direct now, so yeah, about 500 feet now, so that's much better. We'll make a left turn to come back and then set the ILS. Not going to arm Vorlock because we're going to fly through the localizer, which we have done at the moment. Getting right back on profile now, so we can start bringing the speed back to 180. The fog has magically appeared. Some fantastic weather by AS16. So reducing speed well below the glide. Go vertical speed now. Bring this, start reducing it. Track the speed brake. Okay, now we're sensible on the localizer, so we can arm Vorlock. And actually sensible on the glide slope as well, so we can just go ahead and arm approach. It will capture the localizer first before it captures the glide. Just gotta bring this round a bit more just to help us do that. Yeah, so we're looking good. Coming up to 10 miles. We're below 200 knots, below 3,000 feet. Got some flaps out, so we're nice and stable now. This is good. Looking like we can have a successful approach. A successful approach really begins from having being stabilized pretty much as far back as possible. So now the descend is down to 2,000 feet to intercept the ILS. Got to bring this right up, not to level, but we want to keep a nice CDA, so constant descent approach. Don't want to level off at any point. So coming on to the localizer now, Vorlock capture, so we'll set the runway heading. I don't know why it keeps defaulting to 225, I guess that's just the database I have. But now runway heading 225 set, it's coming in nicely on the glide slope. Don't want to slow down too much, so we'll just increase this a little bit. The glide slope's coming nicely, should capture any moment now. Glide slope capture, so missed approach altitude 3,000 or below, so put missed approach altitude of 3,000, that's set. Got 7.5 miles to run. And around 5 miles we're going to put the gear down and start the landing checks. As you can see, it's not looking great, but this is pretty typical for a Cat 1 approach in these conditions. You won't see anything until you're sort of 100 feet above decision heights. I've had a problem with the plane actually calling out 100 above and minimums, so if it doesn't, I'll just call it myself. So 5 miles, go down, flat 15, and landing checklist flaps. So we've got start switches, they're continuous. Recall is checked, speed brakes on green light, landing gear is down 3 greens, go Slowing down. Flaps 25. Flaps 30. And flaps 40. So flaps, we've got 40, 40, and our green lights, and landing lights, so we've been cleared to land. They're on. So coming in now, passing 500 feet above the ground, still can't really see much. So we're looking outside now, looking inside. Got a little bit of ground contact with some trees down here. That's a good indicator. Still can't see anything. 100 above. Looking outside, looking for any runway cues. Still can't see anything. Okay, approaching minimums. So go around. Can't see the runway. Go around. Flat 15. Set go around thrust. Silence the alarm. So we've got flat 15, set go around thrust. Positive rate, gear up. Passing 400 feet, we go back to LNAV. One to go. See, the climb rate is it's fantastic in the 7.3. We're actually going to reach 3,000 before we even make the turn. Let's go up to flaps 5 now. Oops. Just went through that a little bit. It's very hard to do this all on your own. But that's okay. We pretty much did it. We've done the go around. Go out to 3.1 miles. We're at 2.5 now. Haven't gone above 185 knots. We're coming back to 3,000. That's my bad. We're at 3,000. Put in the autopilot to level. The plane keeps going back every time now. It just, even though we press down, it goes back to heading select. So luckily we caught that just in time. That's just a PNDG thing. It must go to heading select. There must be something in the settings which is telling it to do that, even though we arm LNAV. So at 3.1 we're turning. It must be established 8 miles. Below 185, so we can just put this up a little bit. We put it to 185. Oh, actually we can go to flaps 1, so let's go to flaps 1. We're obviously nice and light today. Then only once we're nice and calm, we've accomplished all the major tasks, will we report going around. So we've reported going around, they say continue the standard missed approach, and it'll be radar vectors for a category 3 report ready for the approach. So that's what we'll do. We're going to go out to Barkway, then we'll get vectors back for Cat 3 approach. So we just finished the rest of the missed approach, establishing in on the 3, 5, 4 at the moment. Okay, nice and established, you can speed up, so bar 220 knots. With a positive rate on the speed, go flaps up. Okay, they're going to give us a radar vector now. They've decided they're going to get us a vector of 030. So we'll go heading select. So we're at 3,000, the flaps are up with no lights, we'll take the after takeoff checklist. So aircon and press, 1.2 psi, stable, set. Engine start switches, anti-ice is off, so they can come off. And I can leave it up and off. Auto brake to off, but actually we're going to do another approach, so it's sensible just to leave it in 3 in this case. And altimeter is staying on 1037, so that's the takeoff checklist complete. So now we're brief for the Cat3 approach. The only major difference is the minimums. So with the Barrow now, we need to put 1,000 feet above aerodrome level. So that's 1350. So 1350. Check off fuel. So at the moment we've got 2.9. Our diversion fuel is 2.1 to Luton. So yeah, we've got enough fuel to come back and do another approach. So I think that's sensible. Check with the other guys, see if he agrees with you. In this case, I'm just agreeing with myself, so that's all good. For a Cat3 approach, we do have some limitations actually in the QRH. So I'll put a screenshot of that up as well. Basically, the crew needs to be qualified, the aircraft needs to be qualified, the ILS needs to be qualified, and the runway needs to be qualified. And then it briefs, so the minimums for this approach will be 50 feet DH, so decision height, so radio 50, and RVR 200 meters is required. It's a dual channel approach and a go around to 3,000 feet. The FO must be on instruments for the approach and landing down to taxi speed, and the captain will be the one landing the aircraft after minimums if he decides to land. No paperwork during low visibility taxi. Airport diagram must be followed by the FO to the parking gate. Limitations: it's a dual channel approach, 2 engine approach with flaps 40, maximum headwind 25 knots, maximum crosswind 20 knots, maximum tailwind 10 knots. No forecast or reported wind shear, and glide slope capture must occur by 1500 feet AGL. So we've read through that, we've briefed each other. We're happy that it's going to be just the same ILS, same frequencies, no need to change any of that. So we're just doing an approach checklist again. So altimeters and instruments set and cross-checked, and the approach aids, we need the minimums again, and we haven't got a route. Normally if you do a go around it should keep the route, but it hasn't for this case. So we'll go back to Stansted, ILS 22, no transition, it's fine. Legs page, which directs into fix. Activate, execute. Progress page 2.8 and 2.8, so nothing to burn, so gross weight's correct, 58. VREF 132, VFly 137. So approach aids are now checked and set, so approach checklist complete. We're now ready for the approach. So we're call ready, and okay, they're going to give us now a heading back towards the runway, so give us a downwind now. And we're already at 3,000 feet, so that's looking pretty good. So this time we'll do an auto land. The only difference with the call outs on the way down is at 500 feet we are going to call 500 feet radio flare armed, just verifying that flare is armed on the FMAs for the auto land. Now the 737 doesn't have rollout guidance, so as soon as it lands we need to disconnect the autopilot and control the rollout manually, or the captain will. Okay, they'll descend us now 2,500, and we'll get a right turn. Just use vertical speed, keep it nice and slow. And we'll take flaps 1. Another difference, as soon as we arm approach, we're going to arm Command A and Command B, because like it says in the checklist, it's a dual channel approach. So dual channel is using both channel A and channel B. If we were to go around this time, when you press toga, the autopilot will automatically follow flight director guidance, which is very helpful indeed. Arming Vorlock. Vorlock capture, runway heading 225, set. Then get flaps 5. Gliders coming alive, so arming approach, Command A and B. Closer capture, missed approach altitude 3,000 feet set. Ten degrees, so engine anti-ice can come back on. Passing 6 miles, so a mile before we put up the gear. We're just going to do it a little earlier just to help us, so we'll go get down now. Flat 15. And landing checks to flaps. So start switches. Continuous. Recalls, checks, speed brakes, arming green lights, landing gears down 3 green, flaps 25. Auto brake level 3 set. And flaps 30, flaps 40. Flaps, got 40 selected, 40 here, and green lights. Landing lights are on. Check for the 1,000. I'll move to the captain's seat for this, because it speed the landing from this side. So looking for 500 on the rad out. Again, got a little bit of ground contact already. 500 feet radio, flare armed. The FO would reply passing 440, radio flare armed. You can hear all the trim going in now. It trims the aircraft nose down, so when it releases control column pressure, it has a natural flare. Also means if you go around from now, you're going to need to actually push down on the control column if you were to disconnect the autopilot, because it's going to pitch up rapidly. Okay, we've got the lights in now. So the captain would call land. looks a little bit offset. Okay, still select reverse, disconnect the autopilot, position manually on the runway. And the first rapid exitway. That's it. That's doing a Cat 1 approach, going around from minimums, coming back and configuring for an auto land, and then an auto land at Stansted in beautiful foggy conditions. I hope the video helped some of you guys today. Apologise for any little mistakes I may have made. It turns out it's quite difficult to do this on your own. Much easier in the real thing. If you have any questions or like to see any other videos, just let us know and we'll try our best to do them as quickly as we can. I'd like to wish you all a Merry Christmas. I hope you have some lovely time off with your families while we're all flying around the world. All the best.